MeMonster.
Chapter 211. Monsters are rampaging in the south side too. Monsters are invading from the northern beach. Inside her mansion in western Crevon, Tomer sighed as she received reports from her communication crystal. Crevon's monsters had begun to stir. Not only had their numbers tripled, but they were also a level higher than normal. It happened so quickly that players living in central Crevon hadn't even noticed. And the damage? The northern castle is heavily damaged. It hasn't been toppled yet, but they're having difficulty holding the monsters back. Truth be told, Crevon had been too peaceful for far too long. When Tomer first came to this floor, she was told that the last war was 100 years ago. As such, Crevon's soldiers had become too lax. What is the royal family's plan? They're planning on dispatching Lu Bu and other generals. They're also planning on hiring outsiders for help, since they know outsiders need TP. Anyways, how are the damages on the western front? There must be more monsters in that area. It's okay for now, but the monsters are getting stronger. Just as Tomer said, western Crevon had surprisingly suffered little damage, despite bordering land that was directly transformed by the demon realm. It was all thanks to Tomer's thorough preparation. She had put her soldiers through hellish training for the past 3 to 4 months, and used both aid from the central government and her own personal funds to upgrade her soldiers' and knights' equipment. As a result, ordinary soldiers averaged level 10, and knights who had vowed loyalty to Tomer had reached level 16. Furthermore, she had extraordinary guests like Chuck Jung-young and Jin Johan who liked to battle for fun. I'll need more funds. But that didn't mean she had no problems. She'd run out of funds to pay the soldiers' salaries, provide their meals, and reinforce the castle walls. Understood. I will let His Majesty know about the Western Front's situation. Thanks. Tomer turned off the communication crystal and sighed. As she pressed down on her temple, a soft voice entered her ears. Looks like this place is safer than the royal palace. She knew who the voice belonged to without looking. Tomer held herself back from sighing when she saw Araha lying on her office couch with a sleepy face. Princess, when are you going back? I don't want to. Pardon? They won't mind even if someone like me disappears. I'm low rank. No, you have to go back. Why? Because I feel uncomfortable. Araha frowned at Tomer's blunt statement. See, even Margrave is looking down on me because of my low rank. I am not. I am simply dealing with the monster attack. Tomer's dukedom was located on the western border of Crevon. Because she had her own army, she was also given the title Margrave. With the demon realm full of monsters, Tomer had to be wary of a potential attack at any moment. It simply wasn't the environment a royal princess should be in. You speak like you've been ruling for more than 20 years, Duchess, Araha muttered curtly. My heart says this is my homeland. Fine, then I'll return after I get what I came to find. The crane feather fan? Araha nodded without a word. At that moment, another report came in from Tomer's crystal ball. Duchess, Fionel is here. Both Tomer and Araha were surprised by the sudden report. Fionel? Why is that old man here? Fionel? He heard that his savior is here and said that he wants to express his gratitude. Savior? Tomer suddenly remembered the woman who was working as a centurion in her army and sparred with her at least 5 times a day. The centurion, you mean? Pardon? Which centurion are you talking about? Let him in. Tomer cut off the communication and messaged her centurion. Where are you? I'm eating. A dry voice rang out. The dukedom centurion was Boss's current official position. Although they talked politely with each other in public, they spoke very casually in private. Come find me after you're done eating. There's someone who wants to see you. 7th floor, Game Center. Luxury Hotel, 31st floor. I saw a fancy ceiling as soon as I opened my eyes. I was currently staying in the executive suite of the 7th floor's luxury hotel, which was only second to its presidential suite. I took half a day's rest here, doing nothing. How comfy. Of course, I could have rested in my waiting room, but this hotel was better for relaxing while doing absolutely nothing else. I will help you shower.
Noticing that I had woken up, robots gathered near me. I let them do as they wanted and continued looking up at the ceiling. Krevon just made an official announcement. They're handing out TP for killing monsters. But the monsters are too strong. You'd have to be pretty damn powerful if you don't want to die in the process. I heard this all happened because Black Lotus got killed. Is this true? Don't tell Krevon citizens that. The comfy bed I was lying in instantly changed to a bathtub. I felt several hands massaging me and washing my hair as I read the public forum. What a party. The community was already a ruckus, but the real calamities had yet to descend. Eileen's party was lasting longer than I thought on the 9th floor. But even if the door of calamity opened, it wouldn't impact the players much. Even in the worst-case scenario, in which Krevon would reach the brink of destruction, players had an easy way out. They could simply abandon Krevon. The 9th floor's calamities could only stay on the 8th and 9th floors, and there's a residential area on the 3rd floor as well. With Prestige having changed from a nearly uninhabitable slum to a medieval city, people wouldn't miss Krevon that much. Shower has been completed. Of course, I had no plans to let that happen. I got up as soon as the shower ended. There was food on the table prepared by the robots. I quickly ate and went out to the lobby. For the record, the 7th floor luxury hotel was on a different scale than an inn. Most players would never be able to afford any room, and administrators were its main guests. Was there one here right now? There were only 2 rooms on each floor. I stealthily glanced through the door of the other room. You still haven't learned who the maker is? A woman seemed to be calling someone with a crystal ball. I shuddered as soon as I saw her. The guest next door was none other than Medea. Medea frowned unhappily and whispered in a small voice. Heimdall wouldn't say? I could hear them talk. Yes, he is refusing to talk to us in any way. Tsk, fine. Then what about Aphrodite? She and Helena were looking into it as well. It seems neither of them found out anything about the maker. After all, none of us can interfere in the 8th floor's matters. That's good news at least. I could somewhat guess what they were talking about. Aphrodite, Medea, and Helena. These 3 administrators all liked luxury items and were probably trying to buy the wolf's fragrance.
I had to admit that my wolf's fragrance was really a work of art. As expected of an item I poured all my effort and high-quality materials into making, it had probably reached the pinnacle of what could be classified as a luxury item. We'll talk later. Wait, no. You said there was trouble on the 8th floor, right? Yes. In that case, why don't we... Medea paused, then suddenly looked around. I immediately realized that I was found out. I'm hanging up for now. She hung up the communication crystal ball, walked up to the door, and slowly opened it. I approached her before she could find me. Huh? Not long after, Medea found me in front of the elevator. I met her eyes and tilted my head as though I had seen her only now. Medeanim. Medea glared at me without a word. Her eyes were somewhat aggressive, but only temporarily so. She soon put on a fake, gentle expression and smiled. Hello. Yes, hello. I didn't expect to see you here. Did you come to gamble again? I shook my head. No, I don't gamble anymore. I see. I saw Medea clenching her teeth stealthily. How scary. Should I make up an excuse and run away? While I was contemplating, Medea spoke first. Oh, right. I'm using the robe you gave me as a consolation prize well. A faint hostility flickered in her voice. It was the kind that was much more threatening and cold than open hostility. No, consolation prize. That was a present. I'm no fool. You took off with 300,000 TP and left that robe behind to not anger me. Medea looked at me with a bright smile, and I scratched the back of my neck. She might have hit me with a magic spell if we weren't on the 7th floor. Damn, she was the one who got greedy and lost. Why is it my fault? I let out a dry cough. It felt wasteful to give her a present without asking for anything in return. But I had to keep a good relationship with Medea for prestige at the very least. Plus, I made the wolf's fragrance pretty on purpose. It should probably be the prettiest and fanciest ever robe in the tower. Its high level, level 10, was also an indication of it. That said, its usefulness in practical situations was not on par with its level at all. "I prepared a present for you, Medea-nim." I spoke with determination. However, Medea immediately declined. "Yeah, no thanks." Then she continued with a twisted sneer. "I don't need your heart either. Not, I will take your heart, but the other way. She completely hates me, doesn't she?" Well, I was slightly flustered, but it was her loss anyway. Let's see her face when she sees my robe in some other administrator's hands. "What a shame, I worked hard to make it." "It's fine. How good can an item made by someone like you be? Even the robe you gave me before, I threw it away after one use." I was just going to leave, but she kept provoking me. Was she also mad that I got rid of her tracking spell? I was starting to get angry. "Really?" "Yep." Hearing that, I smiled forcefully. Ding! The elevator arrived at that moment. We got on at the same time. An awkward silence filled the elevator as it descended. Thankfully, the 7th floor elevator was extremely quick, needing only 2 seconds to go from the 31st floor to the 1st floor. Ding! The door opened again, and when I set foot outside the elevator, "Hello!" AlphaGo suddenly appeared. It was then that I realized we weren't on the 1st floor. This was the administrator's 17th floor. AlphaGo looked at me and spoke. "The administrator of the 7th floor, CMOD, has a message for you." "Huh? Are you the crafter of Wolf's Fragrance?" "Yes, but why?" "What?" At that moment, Medea, who was about to close the elevator door, suddenly flashed her eyes at me. Seeing how surprised she was, I couldn't help but think my luck was helping me out again to pay her back for looking down on me. I looked back and forth between Medea and AlphaGo and hid my expression. "Ah, yes, I'm the one who made Wolf's Fragrance. The administrator CMOD would like to buy that work of art." "Rather than that, how did he find out?" "CMOD was watching over your craftsmanship." Medea's eyes widened the more AlphaGo talked, and I felt giddy. What words should I choose to make Medea angrier? While I was having such delightful thoughts, "The first party in the 9th floor has given up their right to battle first. The door of calamity has opened." A flurry of system messages suddenly shot up. The list of calamities is as follows. 1. Half-man, half-cow monster, Minotaur. 2. Petrifying enchantress, Medusa. 3. Odd-eyed giant, Cyclops. 4. Living hive mind, Chimera. 5. Bottom-dwelling snake, Python. The 9th floor's calamities will now slowly lead their armies in advance to the 8th floor. They will drive Krivon's monsters to madness. Krivon's demons will now take on a more aggressive stance. My face froze. As expected, there were 2 more calamities to defeat than in the original novel. What did you just say? Wolf's Fragrance? Then the gift you were talking about is..." Medea placed her hand on my shoulder, but I brushed it off with a sharp snap of my wrist. "Yes, but didn't you say you didn't want it?" No, but... You made that thing? How?" Rather than that, something really important just came up, so I have to go to the 8th floor. Sorry, Medea-nim." In truth, I wasn't in that much of a hurry, but I acted otherwise as I ripped the ticket to the 8th floor. Wait, Medea's voice cut off in the middle. Serves her right for being such a pain. Desert Eagle's enhancement has been completed. Many functionalities have been added to the weapon in addition to increased firepower. The added functionalities are as follows. 1. Tracking bullet. You can make your bullets track the enemy. 2. Self-tracking bullet. The Desert Eagle will not leave your body. 3. Exploding bullet. Self-explanatory. 4. Piercing bullet. Self-explanatory. I arrived at Krivon with the enhanced Desert Eagle. Despite such powerful monsters invading, Krevon's city was, "Buy some beef jerky! They're excellent food for traveling!" This looks different than the cigarettes I know. I hear they modified the design so that outsiders can smoke it. If you try it, you'll see that it has a weaker taste, making it easier to smoke. Mom, I'm hungry! Very peaceful. Its citizens never ceased laughing, and every shop was bustling. It wasn't the scenery one would expect from a country facing a catastrophe. But looking at history, it wasn't that surprising. Krevon's government likely didn't tell its citizens about the calamities to prevent mass panic. Spartan, Senuri. On the streets of Krevon, which were no different than usual, I summoned Spartan and Senuri. Hee! Senuri stomped her hoofs strongly. Black skin, black mane, black irises. A steed that seemed to be darkness itself. The appearance of such a horse grabbed the attention of nearby people. I hopped on Senuri graciously. Go to where my companions are. Hee! Senuri immediately charged forward. The robe I was wearing began to flutter in the wind.
Clack, clack. Senuri started off on the ground but was running through the air before I noticed. There were only a few horses capable of air walking. After about 10 minutes, I arrived at World's End. You're here, newbie. How flashy. On a mountain that had a clear vantage point of the whole World's End, Chek Jung-young greeted me as I came down from the sky. Hello. I fixed my disheveled robe and looked down. The calamities that came out of the door of calamity had already claimed their territories and were now forming an organized army. Looking at this scene, I made a bitter smile. It seemed Eastern Krevon had already fallen. What's our plan? Chek Jung-young asked. We're going to hunt one calamity and immediately go up to the 10th floor. After we get there, we start climbing the tower for real. We'll be the first ones to reach each floor at least up to the 15th. We get a bonus if we hunt one of those calamities too. From now on, climbing the tower alone would be hard even for me. As such, I plan to climb as a group while still taking all the necessary rewards. Hunting those guys isn't going to be easy, Jin Johan, who was standing next to Chek Jung-young, said. He was wearing a gentle smile with his serpent spear in hand. It's fine. Don't look there, but way over there, to the left of the canyon. I made a small smile and pointed at a small canyon in the distance. One calamity, a large snake, had claimed it as its territory. It was the python. It was by itself, practically asking to be killed. It was also the weakest of the calamities. If the Minotaur was level 40, the python should be about level 30. I guess so. Chek Jung-young, where's boss? Hearing Jin Johan's question, Chek Jung-young scratched his head and murmured clumsily, How would I know? Boss likes this little guy. Boss will be here soon. I already messaged her. It was then a group of players appeared on the plain not so far away. I pushed my hood down. It was the essence of the Straight team. They weren't the only ones there. The English Royal Court Guild, Kim Suho's party, Desolate Moon, Frost Sanctuary, and various individual rankers, including Vast Expanse's hunter Kim Junya. Players who could call themselves experts were gathering one by one. Newbie, go out there and strike the first blow. Pardon? I tilted my head at Chek Jung-young's sudden suggestion. It looks like those guys are going to come together and roll their heads again. What are you going to do if they choose the same target as us? Oh, it makes sense. Just like Chek Jung-young said, the players gathered in the plain were discussing how to approach the upcoming battle. A few of the smart ones should have noticed that the python was the weakest, but if I shot an arrow to signal the start of battle, they would have no choice but to fight the nearby calamities and monsters. Before that, give me the thing I asked for. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Chek Jung-young took out several arrows from his inventory. There were a total of 60 level 5 dark ore arrows, made from the dark ores I bought from players in the auction house or received through rolling the random dice. You consumed spirit power to use level 6 synthesis, synthesizing level 5 dark ore arrow with level 7 dark ore arrow. Warning, the high level of the items being synthesized decreases the success rate. Synthesis succeeds. Warning, the high level of the items being synthesized decreases the success rate. Synthesis succeeds. Warning, the high level of the items being synthesized decreases the success rate. Synthesis succeeds. Of the 60 arrows, 50 successfully fused with the 5 level 7 arrows I had, upgrading them to level 9. Chek Jung-young, who was staring at me intently, asked, "It's interesting no matter how many times I see it. Why did you learn such a weird skill?" I smiled lightly and knocked all 5 arrows on my bow. A sudden question popped up in my head. Between my gun and my bow, which was stronger? I no longer know the answer. I'm starting. Don't hide. Walk up to the mountain peak and show yourself. Chek Jung-young pushed me to the mountain peak. I'm not an attention seeker or anything. I really don't mind. What use is there to having cool items if you're not going to show off? You're good at archery too, so show it off. There aren't many chances in this vast world to make a name for yourself. If you say so. I'd make some SP at the very least, so it wasn't a disadvantageous offer. I grumbled as I walked up and aimed the 5 arrows at the monsters. Then I infused some of Stigma's magic power into them. Before I even let go of my bowstring, some of the players with keen eyesight found me, pointed their fingers, and began to yell something. This was all Chek Jung-young's fault. I let go of the bowstring begrudgingly. The 5 dark ore arrows drew 5 independent trajectories and flew towards the armies of each of the calamities.
Chapter 212. The Guild Alliance and the Rankers responded enthusiastically to Crevon's call for help. They claimed to have deep emotional bonds with Crevon and insisted they owed it much, but in truth, most were after the money Crevon had offered. They all gathered at World's End in the east. This is no joke. But the calamities they faced far exceeded their expectations in both scale and intensity. 4 calamities were stationed across a vast area about the size of Jehu Island. Medusa, Minotaur, Chimera, Cyclops. The players stared at these legendary creatures, their overwhelming presence shaking the earth. The players dared not approach and could only watch from afar. Suddenly, a childlike voice broke the tense silence. It belonged to Yi Ji-yoon. Everyone turned their attention to her. Yi Ji-yoon, unperturbed, simply stared in one direction. Before long, everyone looked where she was looking. An archer stood atop a nameless, steep mountain. A black lotus was engraved on his robe, which fluttered in the wind. He aimed his bow at the vast field below, leaving no room for error. Black Lotus. A series of murmurs, more like laments, broke out at once. The people gathered here knew him too well. Black Lotus. He had returned. It was clear who his arrows defined as the enemy. A wave of panic swept through the crowd. Everyone watched as he pulled the bowstring. Some tried to put up barriers, others began to run. But the arrows were fired before anyone could react. At the sound of arrows flying through the air, some screamed and others dropped to the ground. But no matter how long they waited, the attack they anticipated never came. Black Lotus's arrows were not aimed at them. At this realization, a series of doubtful murmurs broke out. His arrows had actually been fired in the opposite direction, toward Chimera, the 3rd calamity, and the group of monsters near it. Chwa! The arrows fired in a single shot split into many paths and tore through the monsters. Wow! Is this real? What? His archery skill had surpassed human limits. The arrows, divided into 5 paths, moved as if they were self-aware. Each line pierced one monster after another, painting the air with their movement. One shot meant the death of at least 10 monsters. Gruo! The monsters roared in fury at the surprise attack, only to be shot down again. Yet the monsters were not frightened, and the arrows continued to pierce them without hesitation. Their stubborn animosity had no effect on the arrows. That's when the players realized Black Lotus was helping them, although they weren't sure why. In that case, there was no reason to be afraid. The most simple-minded guilds were the first to act. Members of the Chinese guild, the Empire of Glory, and the Indian guild, Mumbai Crew, ran to where Black Lotus's arrows had landed. To earn TP, they killed and tore apart the monsters that were already half dead. Seeing this, other guilds rushed in impatiently, and high rankers had no choice but to join as well. It was the start of a war. Boss joined us soon after the fight began, though it was too disorganized to be called a war. She was fully prepared for action, and we all rushed toward Python, who was by itself. Python was literally a giant serpent, but her head slightly resembled that of a human. She was scattering her bodily fluids and eggs in the canyon to mark her territory. "Can I go in and fight now?" Chek Jung-gun asked as he began to stretch. He seemed to acknowledge her as a challenging opponent, seeing how much effort he put into stretching. His arms were as big as my thigh, and his legs as wide as my body. The size of his biceps made me wonder what his stats looked like. There was only one way to satisfy my curiosity. I took out the directory. Stats. Variable stats. Variable stats. Strength, question mark, question mark, question mark. Stamina, question mark, question mark, question mark. Speed, question mark, question mark, question mark. Perception, 10.7. Magic power, question mark. Vitality, question mark. I was at a loss for words. All but his perception stat had question marks, which meant they were well over 11. He seemed more like a monster than Python. "What are you looking at?" Of course, it wasn't like it didn't make sense. Chek Jung-gun had acquired Secret March, a special skill that boosted physical stats, and his base stats were high to begin with, thanks to his gift. His gift was inheritance, which allowed him to connect with his former life. In his former life, he was the strongest warrior in Gore. "Ah, I see." Chek Jung-gun grinned broadly. His gift was inheritance, which allowed him to connect with his former life. In his former life, he was the strongest warrior in Gore. "But our bodies are made differently, so you can never be like me," Chek Jung-gun said, misunderstanding my gaze as envy. Not like I want to." Don't lie. Whatever." "Oh? You're too noisy, Gyung," Boss interrupted. Chek Jung-gun mumbled in dissatisfaction and retreated. Now it was time for the mission briefing. I gathered all my dark ore arrows in one place. She's pretty tough, so we can't just do whatever we want. Each of us will have to play a specific role. This was obvious to anyone who had played MMORPGs before. Cooperation and strategy were the most important aspects of a raid. Chek Jung-gun, who liked to play solo, seemed annoyed, and Jin Yo-han smiled and nodded. I know, but there's only 4 of us." "No, there's 7. At that moment, a dark flash and a white bird of prey appeared wrapped in wind. Sanuri and Spartan stopped next to me. They brought Hajin, who had been sleeping, with them. I wanted to rest for a bit. Hajin got off, tidying her disheveled hair. Finally, everyone, me, Boss, Chek Jung-gun, Hajin, Jin Yo-han, Spartan, and Sanuri were here. Well then, I began assigning roles. When taking on a snake that big, it was better to divide her into different parts and attack. Chek Jung-gun was put in charge of the tail, Python's vital point. Jin Yo-han was assigned to the right side of the body, Boss to the left, and I took the head. We can leave the other monsters nearby to Sanuri and Spartan." "What about me?" Jain asked, tilting her head. "You're quick on your feet. Please assist anyone who needs help." Okay." With a long yawn, we prepared for action. First, Chek Jung-gun stepped forward. "So, you're saying I have to go and get rid of the tail first?" "Yes, but be careful. She'll probably shoot poison with her tail. It'll be hard to block, even with my armor." Item levels and monster levels worked differently. Simply put, item levels were more valuable. For example, depending on its properties, a level 3 sword could be used to kill level 6 to 8 monsters. But our enemy was the level 30 python. Chek Jung-gun's level 6 infighter's leather armor shouldn't be able to protect him from python's venom. "No worries, my body is tougher than this armor." The blood vessels in Chek Jung-gun's eyes were already starting to burst. As a warrior, he was clearly excited for the battle. "Okay then, let's go." With that, Chek Jung-gun ran. Gung, 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 gung. The sound of his footsteps shook the earth, and the ground cracked where he stepped, throwing bits of soil into the air.
Chak Jong-young roared and jumped. For a second, he flew, purely from the strength of his legs. I shot my arrows just before Chak Jong-young landed on Python's tail. The other members of the chameleon troop, Spartan and Sanuti, chased after him at a speed almost equal to my arrows. The raid had begun. Party, chameleon troop, is the first to defeat a calamity. This news will be announced shortly. You acquire a calamity core. Now you may go up to the 10th floor at any time. Entering 10F. Warning, party play is recommended at 10F and above. Team Chameleon Troop reached the 10th floor without difficulty. The 10th floor was completely dark. We couldn't see a thing, as though our sense of sight was blocked. The usually helpful system was also silent this time. "What the heck is this place?" Chak Jong-young's voice filled the air. Boss's voice echoed right after. "I can't see anything." But I could. When it came to vision, my gift was unrivaled. You could say it's my privilege as the original author. First, I walked up to Boss and grabbed her hand. "Who are you?" Boss shouted, and snatched my arm. My arm bent the other way and touched her body. "Everyone be careful. Somebody tried to grab my hand. I caught him, but... It's me, Boss." "Eh? It hurts." Oh, sorry." Boss let out a dry cough and let go of me. I grabbed everyone's hands one by one and gathered them together. Soon, a line was formed with me leading the way. "Everyone don't let go," I said, holding Boss's hand tightly. A positive answer came from behind. Then, suddenly, "Welcome to the 10th floor, the maze of insensibility." A strange voice descended from the sky and shook the atmosphere. It was clear the voice belonged to the administrator, so we immediately focused. "I am the administrator of this floor. I assume you are here to find your way to the 11th floor." The voice was cold. Its unpleasant tone gave me goosebumps. "The way to the 11th floor is simple. You must find your way out of the maze of insensibility." Whew. I let out a sigh of relief. In the original story, less than 100 words described the 10th floor. I was worried things might have changed, but thankfully they hadn't. However, I knew that numerous traps and monsters were waiting for you in the maze, and you'll lose your senses one by one as you get closer to the exit, just like how sight was taken from you. The administrator paused briefly before continuing. His tone was much warmer and more friendly than before. "But I am also aware that you are the first to conquer a calamity. I respect people like you. Therefore, I have made a difficult decision to allow you to keep all of your senses in the maze of insensibility in exchange for your calamity core." I sneered in silence. He dares to scheme against us when he's only the administrator of an insignificant floor. No, we'll just do it. You will regret it. I've come to this conclusion after much deliberation. Under normal circumstances, that's okay, we'll play fair. Fool, good luck then. The voice stopped abruptly. The darkness remained, of course, since we didn't offer our calamity core. With the administrator's voice gone, everything became silent. Hey, I've got a question. Suddenly, Chok Jong-young broke the silence. Immediately, my heart skipped a beat. Chok Jong-young's thoughtless question was piercing the root of my settings. I don't know, maybe because they're already dead. The answer to his question required further explanation. Take 8-3F, Craven, for example. Although the rulers of the 8th floor, the Atalos royal family, had Lu Bu, Lancelot, and other heroes from history under their control, they didn't subjugate the demons. This wasn't because they pursued virtuous or ethical values like coexistence or peace. They simply had no other choice. A dead man was a dead man. Souls like Lu Bu and Lancelot, who once lived on Earth but were now dead, couldn't move outside their designated areas. Even Lu Bu, who had the broadest range, could only move around 8F Craven mainland and some parts of 3F Prestige. However, the administrators were free from this restraint. At the same time, they were aware that the worlds they lived in were simply part of a tower. Therefore, they aimed to re-establish themselves in the real world, the Earth, or they wished for the complete extinction of their soul. That's why they helped or hindered the players. The players played the most important role in the administrator's revival or extinction. What the hell does that mean? What I mean is, I'm not sure either. For now, let's get moving. Anyway, we took a step into the entrance of the dark maze. Hold on to the person behind you and don't let go. I'm pretty lucky, so I'll make sure we get to the exit. Just focus on not letting go. Please, Chok Jong-young. Ha! You out of your mind? Why are you pointing me out? I didn't answer and started to walk. Tap, tap. I could still hear quite well, and right behind me, Boss was following me, holding my hand. I walked down the path that my luck pointed out. However, as I walked on, my senses became more and more restricted. Soon, my sense of hearing disappeared, followed by my sense of touch. I could no longer tell whether I was walking or sinking into a swamp. And now, I couldn't help but start doubting my sight, the only sense that was still intact.
Chapter 213. I clenched my teeth and walked forward. I felt that if I turned back, I might forget how to face forward, so I kept moving ahead. Was this the right way? I didn't know. Even questioning it felt like a trap, so I just kept walking. I gripped Boss's hand tighter, though I couldn't feel it because my sense of touch was gone. Soon, the concept of time faded away. I walked for an unknown period, relying only on my sight. Suddenly, I realized I had escaped the maze. I could hear my own breathing again. I was drenched in sweat and blood. Not long after, a burning pain hit me. I must have stepped on traps while my senses were gone. But I still can't see. Wait, what's this? Something's wrong with my wrist. Jane gasped as she emerged from the maze. I caught my breath and turned around. Potion, I need a potion, Hajin. Jane's hand dangled from her arm, her wrist nearly severed. I sighed and handed her a potion. Feeling like someone was missing, I looked around, and as I thought, someone was gone. Boss, Jane, and Jin Johan were behind me, but the most noticeable one wasn't there. Chok Jong-young. Even after all my warnings. Wait, Chok Jong-young isn't here. Oh, you're right. I knew this would happen. That idiot. I'll go get him. Stay here. I silently agreed with Jane and went back into the maze. Boss, still holding my hand, spoke. Hajin, let me go with you. No, it's better if I go alone. You should stay here. Warning,
It is recommended that you stay still if possible. Traveling through the maze in reverse comes with a huge penalty. The administrator of the 10th floor is also hostile towards you. He is assigning harsher trials to your party. I set a 3-minute timer on my smartwatch and let go of Boss's hand. She tried to grab my hand again, but her sight was still restricted. "Hajin, where are you? Grab my hand. Listen to your boss." Boss flailed before falling down. "I'll be back soon." I re-entered the maze. As soon as I took the first step, a strange, overwhelming feeling hit me. I forced my legs forward, trying not to throw up. I kept walking, unable to feel anything. Even after a long time, I couldn't find Chuk Jung-young. Annoyed, I finally turned around. Suddenly, a strange feeling washed over me. Was this me? Was I still myself? "Give me the Calamity Core, and you will be able to find your companion easily." The administrator's voice snapped me out of my daze. I shook my head firmly. I think I said something, but I couldn't hear my own voice. "Fool, you will never escape this place." The administrator vanished. At that moment, a holographic window popped up from my smartwatch. The 3-minute timer had gone off. No matter what the administrator did, I had a way to start over. "You used time reversal. You returned to the past 3 minutes ago." This was my first time using time reversal after obtaining the Clock Hand of Fate. Instantly, the world rippled, and a strange sensation enveloped me. Then, time rewound. "Hajin, let me go with you." Seeing Boss say the same thing, I shook my head and entered the maze again. I remembered the path I just took. Since Chuk Jung-young wasn't there, I chose a different way. Experiencing this senselessness 3 times was enough. I headed where I felt Chuk Jung-young should be. Guided by luck, I found him. He was fighting a monster. Even with all his senses cut off, his battle instincts worked fine. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I walked up, grabbed him, and dragged him out. When the 15-second timer ended, we left the maze. "What?" Chuk Jung-young looked confused. I slapped his chest. Thwack! Startled, he raised his arms to cover his chest. "Why were you fighting, Chuk Jung-young?" "I was?" "Yes." I don't know. Did I?" I wanted to say something, but before I could, a sharp pain struck my chest. My heart pounded. Pain squeezed all my organs, and I collapsed. After that, I couldn't think. My consciousness was swept away by overwhelming pain. I saw Jane and Boss running toward me. They slapped my cheeks and shouted, but I couldn't hear them. A system message appeared. "You reached the point before time reversal. Warning, be wary of the deterrent force. The side effect of time reversal." I could finally think again. I laughed silently. The skill had charges, but using it 3 times in a row would probably kill me. Thankfully, the pain faded as Aether activated the Orb of Regeneration, sensing my condition. "Hajin!" My hearing returned, and Boss's voice reached me. "Hajin, are you okay?" Jane asked too. I gave a bitter smile. Then I turned to Chuk Jung-young. He looked sorry and embarrassed, scratching his head, unsure what to say. He really seemed to be reflecting on his mistake. "This is all because of that son of a bitch!" I pointed at Chuk Jung-young with a trembling finger. Boss, Jane, and Jin Yohan all looked at him seriously. The next week, we breezed through the 11th and 12th floors. I ended up taking the rewards that should have been Suho's, but they weren't anything special. If Suho ever needed something, I could always give it to him later. For the record, the 11th and 12th floors were solo stages that could be repeated. A player only had to beat them once to climb, but could revisit them at higher difficulty to improve. Now we were on the 13th floor. The 13th floor was peaceful. We stayed in a small log cabin with a living room and 1 bedroom. "How high does this tower go?" "Who knows?" I replied curtly to Chuk Jung-young's question. He didn't say anything more, still feeling guilty about the 10th floor. "Really? I think Hajin knows everything." Jane grinned. At that moment, Boss's voice echoed in my head.
Is Hajin really a returner? The knowledge and experience he's shown can only be explained by that. I tilted my head and looked at Boss, who was stroking Spartan's head. Ah, I understand. I was connected with Spartan, and his senses had long surpassed a human's. When he was in good condition, he could probably sense others' thoughts. What I just heard was probably Spartan reading Boss's mind. I'm not a returner. Boss flinched at my words. Technically, I did go back in time by 3 minutes, but that didn't count. It almost killed me, too. Boss's thoughts echoed again. He can even read my mind because of all his experiences. You're wrong. What am I wrong about? Explain that first. Just know that you're wrong. I shook my head and lay down. A clock ticked above. 13F, area of rest, 63, 23, 34. Tick, tick. The goal of the 13th floor was simple: enduring a mental trial. For 100 hours, we were free to rest here. The only catch was that if we fell asleep, we'd be struck by a horrifying nightmare. I'd stayed awake for about 37 hours. If I were alone, I would have fallen asleep long ago. I was grateful for my companions. I'm so bored. I'm gonna work out. Chuck Jung-young roared and jumped up. Jin Yohan looked sharply at him. Want to spar? Sure, follow me. The two left, and Jane followed to watch.
They were full of energy, even after 37 hours awake. They were the type who could stay up for 100 hours without trouble. But I'm so sleepy. I was different. I was used to getting plenty of sleep, and after using time reversal on the 10th and 12th floors, my body was in bad shape. With Aileen's and Kim Suho's parties catching up, we had to keep climbing without rest. I yawned. Boss, watching me, asked, "Are you sleepy?" "Yes." "You're the one who said we shouldn't sleep." "I know." I'd already explained that sleeping here would bring nightmares, dragging out the most painful memories. Russell, Boss crawled to a drawer and took out a deck of playing cards. "Want to play a game?" "No, I can't lose, so it'll only make me sleepier." I thought about sparring, but quickly dismissed it. I might stay awake during the fight, but I'd surely faint afterward. I spent the next 3 hours in a daze. At this point, I wasn't sure if staying awake or sleeping was the real challenge. I yawned and looked at the ceiling, forcing my eyes open. Don't sleep. Don't sleep! I opened my eyes. A white ceiling was above me. I immediately thought, I have to write the next chapter. What time is it? I picked up my smartphone. It was 6 p.m. Only 5 hours till the deadline. I should have enough time. I slept for 8 hours. I groaned and sat up. Even in a hurry, I never skipped my wake-up routine, browsing the internet on my phone. "Hajin, are you still asleep?" A voice called from outside the door. I tilted my head and looked around. It was my one-bedroom apartment. The bed was comfier than usual. So, who was outside? Dirk? The door opened and a familiar silhouette appeared, bringing the smell of cigarettes. My eyes widened. "Dad!" "Stop sleeping during the day and get up. I brought food." Dad's face was a bit blurry. I hadn't heard about him visiting, but I wasn't too surprised. Mom or Dad sometimes dropped by. Suddenly, my vision blurred. What's wrong with me? I rubbed my eyes. Tears. I was crying. Why was I crying? What was wrong with me? "Hajin!" A soft voice entered my ears, like a mosquito's buzz. "What?" I frowned and pounded my ears. "What do you mean, what? Get out here!" "Ah, yes, Dad. Anyways, you said you brought beef." I replied in a cutesy tone and jumped out of bed. Mom was in the living room, cooking beef. "Mom!" I ran up and hugged her. "You smell gross. Go take a shower." Even as she said that, she smiled. "What are you guys doing here? Dad's here too?" "We just had time. You always order delivery, right? We thought we'd give you a home meal. We also brought some side dishes. Go wash your face first." "Okay." I ran to the bathroom and stood at the sink. I was about to turn on the faucet, then paused. Even though Mom and Dad were here, today shouldn't be different from any other day. But something felt wrong. I slowly raised my head and looked in the mirror. I was crying in the mirror. My tears had spread to my hands, which were shaking. I couldn't understand. Why was I crying? What was wrong with me? "Hajin!" A tone began to hear things. "What? How long are you going to stay in there? The meat's done." Yes, I'm going." Hearing Dad, I finished washing up and left the bathroom. A hearty meal was on the table. I just woke up, but any time was good for beef. I happily stuffed rice and beef into my mouth. Eating with Mom and Dad made me happy. So happy that tears streamed down my face. "Hajin!" "Yes?" After I finished a bowl of rice, Dad called my name seriously. It was the tone he used when he wanted to talk about life. I sat up straight, ready for a long lecture. If I wanted to escape, I could always use my deadline as an excuse. But Dad said something unexpected. "It's time to go back." I tilted my head. Go back? This was my home, and Mom and Dad were here. "Kim Hajin!" A shout echoed in my ears. Go back where? "Oh, you mean work? Don't worry, my deadline is in 4 hours. "He's right. He can stay a bit more. You're the one who wanted to see him the most anyway." Mom nudged Dad's shoulder, then nudged mine, asking me if I wanted more rice. I was used to her habits. "Yeah, I'll take seconds." "Oh right, Hajin, you should come home at least once a week. You're not that busy anyway." She said that every time she visited. Normally, I'd say I was too busy with my novel or complain about her nagging. But today, I will, starting next week. That's what I wanted to say. At that moment, Dad cut in. "That's great, but you should still go now. The deadline's approaching, but I still have—" "No, not that." Dad cut me off. I can just tell my readers I was busy and delay the chapter. When I glared at Dad, I was startled. "Not that, Hajin." He smiled, but it was lonely and bitter. "Kim Hajin!" A clear shout rang out in my ears. It's time to go back. "Kim Hajin! Wake up!" In that instant, my eyes shot open. My apartment and everything inside vanished. My senses and breath stopped. I gasped for air. I couldn't see. Everything was hazy. My eyes were wet with tears. But soon, with someone's relieved sigh, a rough hand gently wiped my tears. "You're up?" Only then did I see the woman who protected me. "Was it painful?" "You can give up if you want." I stared at her in a daze. I couldn't think. I'd misunderstood. I thought falling asleep here would bring the most painful or sad memory. Tears welled up from my heart. The small, happy living room and the people I loved but couldn't express it to appeared in my mind. Happy dreams are sad because they can't come true. Unable to bear the sadness, I cried. I covered my eyes and cried. I cried out loud for the first time since I became Hajin in this world. Sounds I couldn't understand came from my mouth. It sounded like moaning, shaking both my body and heart. After an unknown time, my crying turned to weeping, and more time passed before my tears stopped. When I came to my senses, I forced an awkward smile. Boss was still looking down at me. "Were you okay now?" I nodded with a light sigh. "Oh, how embarrassing. Don't fall asleep like me, boss." Boss looked at me silently. Her calm eyes flickered with complicated emotions. "That was more painful than I thought." I raised my hand to my chest. My heartbeat echoed through my body. "Hajin." Boss whispered my name and held my hand. Her warmth enveloped me. Boss looked at me and said, "I'm sorry." Her voice trembled, choked with emotion. I didn't know what she was sorry for. I looked into her eyes, confused. Boss gave a bitter smile and spoke softly, "Don't be hurt."
Chapter 214. Boss looked up at the clock vacantly, then, with a bit of courage, turned her gaze to Kim Hajin. Kim Hajin was sitting on the ground, shuffling cards. His shuffle was elaborate, almost magical. Although he appeared normal on the outside, it was clear he wasn't his usual self. Boss recalled what had just happened as she glanced at Kim Hajin. She didn't know what kind of dream Kim Hajin had, but the image of him muttering to his mother and father was imprinted in her mind. His sorrowful voice made her heart ache. She let out a small sigh. The cabin was very quiet. Spartan had gone back to the waiting room to sleep, and the other members hadn't returned. Who knew what they were up to? After some thought, she turned on her messenger and wrote a message. "What's up?" This was too unfriendly. "What's up, Hajin?" The only difference was the period at the end. "What's up, Hajin?" She didn't like the question mark for some reason. "What's up, Hajin?" She didn't like this one too much. She agonized over whether to put 2 or 3 k, but ultimately gave up. She turned the messenger off and looked at Kim Hajin again. Should she apologize now and ask for his forgiveness? But no words came out. She only looked at him, knowing anything she said now would be nothing more than deception. But every time she looked at him, her heart ached as if pierced by a needle. She didn't know why. Suddenly, a thought crossed her mind. She had killed many people up to this day. Whatever the reason for the murders, it all came down to this. All those people she'd killed were someone's mother, father, daughter, or son. She shut out the emotions that were starting to boil. It was too late for regret. Late regrets couldn't change anything. The people she'd killed could never come back, and she would continue to kill many more in the future. Don't fret over what can't be undone. Do what you can do well. That was what the former boss had told her. She believed it and thought the guilt in her heart had already perished. And yet, "Boss." Suddenly, a voice called her name. She raised her head slightly. Kim Hajin, who had come near, was looking down at her. "Why are you doing that?" Only then did she notice her posture. She was crouched down, hugging her knees. "I wonder why. I guess I'm sleepy too," she murmured and smiled bitterly. "Boss, I'm bored. Do you want to play cards?" "I thought you didn't want to." Kim Hajin gave a small smile. "I have an idea. You can start with 10 cards and I'll start with 5. That way there will be some tension. Oh, you do know how to play poker, right?" "Yeah." She nodded. "Then let's do it." "Okay." He sat in front of her, leaving some distance. She watched him shuffle the deck. Instinctively, she tried to spot a trick and became slightly disgusted with herself. "All right, I'm dealing the cards now." And the game began. Boss was pleased when she saw her hand. However, of the 37 games they played over the next 3 hours,
I quit. Boss lost 36 times.
The last game, where she held quad queens but lost to quad aces, was the final straw. She put the cards down and turned to her side. Man, that didn't work. Then how about I get 5 cards and you get 14? I quit. 8-3F, Crevon Mainland. The players gathered in eastern Crevon. Crevon mobilized magicians to construct a secondary wall just outside the primary wall and built a fortress inside to draw in the players. They used TP and items as bait. The Crevon royal family declared it would lend items to players for free and offer TP for every monster killed. If all the calamities were destroyed, it would give all the items away completely. Of course, it promised to offer one of the royal treasures and 100,000 TP to the player who directly killed a calamity. We got the first entrance reward for the 10th floor only. Currently, in a restaurant near the eastern wall, Eileen was talking to several key members of the Guild Alliance, Rachel, Kim Young-jin, and Yu Yan-ha. It was Black Lotus and his gang who killed the 5th calamity, Python. It was also them who made it through the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th floors. Kim Young-jin nodded at Eileen's remark. I see. During the last 20 days, the players in the tower were shocked by the series of notifications about the climb. Anonymous party has entered the 11th floor for the first time. Anonymous party has entered the 12th floor for the first time. Anonymous party has entered the 13th floor for the first time. Anonymous party has entered the 14th floor for the first time. It took almost a year to climb from the 1st to the 10th floor, but only 2 weeks from the 10th to the 14th. Players argued over whether the anonymous party belonged to Eileen or Black Lotus. Today, Eileen herself put an end to the debate. We were on the 10th floor for 3 full days, I think. We did clear it, but it was surprisingly difficult. Right now, we're on our way to the 13th floor. Meanwhile, Yu Yan-ha was listening to Eileen, but was lost in thought. Her deep, complicated anguish came from her own delusions. Her train of thought went like this. The Black Lotus team is undoubtedly the chameleon troupe. Kim Hajin will surely run to wherever the chameleon troupe is. But Kim Hajin isn't the type to trust others easily. So, he'll try to chase after the chameleon troupe on his own without help. But that's too dangerous. Then, Sir Senior Eileen, about Fenrir, Yu Yan-ha asked carefully. It had been almost a month since she entered the tower, but she had yet to meet Kim Hajin. Even when she suddenly smelled Kim Hajin while walking and chased after the scent, she only ended up finding Rachel, who was drenched in his scent. It happened again today. Rachel, completely oblivious, asked happily if Yu Yan-ha had come to see her. Yu Yan-ha couldn't say no to her smiling face, so they decided to meet Eileen together. You're looking for Fenrir? Eileen sulked. Not only her party, but also Fenrir were the center of gossip on the public forum these days. He's not too popular these days. It all started with the Black Lotus incident a while ago. Black Lotus, who used to attack other players before the calamities, switched sides and attacked monsters when the calamities took over Crevon. The incident was surprising. That day, hundreds of monsters were killed with just 5 arrows. He had given people another story to tell. People started calling Black Lotus the real dark hero. People are probably bad-mouthing him as much as me. Are you worried about him? No, he's not the type to concern himself with such things. Really? Well, I know nothing. He always does well on his own, so he's probably fine. Yu Young-ha looked glum at the insincere remark. Next to her, Rachel let out a dry cough and stepped forward quietly. Since I'm on good terms with Eileen, I'll try to get her to talk for Yu Yan-ha's sake. Excuse me, Eileen. So you were here? But before Rachel could say anything, the restaurant door opened and someone came in. Aileen, Yu Yan-ha, Kim Young-jin, and Rachel all turned their attention to the door. There stood a magician, similar in size to Aileen. Eh?
Aileen widened her eyes at the unexpected encounter. She's my companion. She said she wanted to meet you, Senior Aileen, at all costs. Yu Yunha stood up and introduced her companion. But Aileen was simply stunned. The staccato beat of high heels echoed as the magician approached. Even with her kill heels on, she was barely 160 centimeters tall, and her round face gave off a childlike vibe. But the way she walked and her expression were the epitome of elegance and pride. Kim Young-jin tried to hold back his laughter, and Rachel sent an adoring gaze to the doll-like figure. But only one person, Aileen, was more serious than ever. Aileen. Ah Hae-in spoke. Aileen's jaw dropped. It's been a while. On a side note, there were facilities called Talent Education Centers on Earth. Of all cadets in agent military academies, children under the age of 11 could only take classes until 2 p.m. due to children's rights issues, so private institutions were established to educate and train them during subsequent hours. The most famous talent education center in the world was the Veritas Education Center in Gangnam, South Korea, which both Ah Hae-in and Aileen attended. When Aileen first registered, she was 5, and Ah Hae-in was 11. The two first met then. They had a long history together, but Aileen didn't offer any greeting and simply swallowed her saliva. The reason was simple. A long time ago, the two had fought to the death, literally, to the brink of death. Click, click. Ah Hae-in approached arrogantly and sat in front of Aileen. The two little adults stared at each other in silence. It was as if a dog and a cat were having a staring contest. They were dead serious, but from a distance, the atmosphere was so cute, it was funny. Suddenly, tock tock, Yu Yunha tapped Kim Young-jin's shoulder, prompting him to check his messenger. Kim Young-jin pretended to look at the time, but instead checked his messages. Yu Yenha, Yenha. I received a report just now about a massive-scale artifact site being uncovered in Central Asia. Kim Young-jin widened his eyes a bit, but calmly turned the messenger off. He felt sorry for Rachel, who was with him, but this was a matter of utmost secrecy. Anyway, Senior Aileen, Fenrir will probably continue to chase after Black Lotus, so if you happen to run into him later, please tell him that Yu Yenha wants to see him. Huh? Oh, okay. Alien nodded, studying Ah Hae-in's expression. We have to go now. You two please take your time. Huh? Where? You can stay here. No, you should stay. Yu Yenha and the others got up, leaving Aileen's grievous voice behind. Soon they were completely out of the restaurant, and the woman who had been eavesdropping on their conversation muttered coldly, "Idiots." Jin Sa-hyuk was extremely frustrated. Everyone was talking about how Fenrir was after Black Lotus or how Fenrir killed Black Lotus. What a joke! She wanted to tell them, just like the barber who shouted about the king's ears in the bamboo forest, Kim Hajin is Fenrir and also Black Lotus, you brainless fools. But Jin Sa-hyuk didn't. It wasn't that she feared angering Kim Hajin, she just hated mudslinging. It was too ungraceful to be called a revenge. How am I going to make 150,000 TP this way? In any case, she was more concerned with TP, so she could use the upgrade center on the 7th floor. It would be easy if she could rob rich NPCs' houses and hunt other players for TP, but Kim Ha-jin's threat forced her to stay put. She consoled herself by saying that in the tower, nobody, not just herself, could stand up to Kim Ha-jin. Ding! Suddenly, a message arrived. Bell, Sa-hyuk. I heard from our informant that a bunch of artifacts were uncovered in Central Asia. It was from Bell. So what? Jin Sa-hyuk didn't bother messaging back. Even the time spent eating was a waste.
She needed to kill monsters to collect TP and use the upgrade center as soon as possible. Bell. It looks like the chameleon troop will be there as well. What do you think? But the moment she read that message, her gaze sharpened like a blade. You sure? By chameleon troop, you mean Kim Hajin? Bell. Probably. You know how I'm acquainted with their boss. I'd say there's a 90% chance. But why? Do you want to fight him? So he can kick your butt again? She clenched her fists automatically. Outside the tower. Not inside, but outside. She was confident she would win on Earth. No, not just confident, she was sure she would win. Jin Sa-hyuk pulled up her self-esteem that had sunk to the bottom and muttered with extreme resentment. I'll bite and chew every bit and piece of... Here are your chicken legs. At that moment, the waiter set down a plate of 20 chicken legs in front of her. She took the legs and tore them apart roughly. Num num. As she bit into the tender meat, her eyes glowed with fury and the will for revenge. 15F. Genko Peace Abandoned Vessel. The chameleon troop decided to halt their climb on the 15th floor, which looked quite futuristic. We were inside an abandoned warship that looked like it came out of a science fiction movie. Currently, Chuk Jong-gyung and I were sitting on a moss-covered bench. Chuk Jong-gyung spoke up. We're stopping here? Yeah, we have to go back to Cravon now. Cravon is still under attack, and the other calamities, besides Python, are still alive even as we climb the tower. Kim Soo-ho would defeat Medusa soon enough. But the remaining calamities are Minotaur and Chimera, both level 40, and Cyclops, level 45. Furthermore, there were many more calamities waiting on the 9th floor. We can't forget that we didn't break through the 9th floor. We simply skipped it by killing a calamity. Oi. What's up? Sorry, I'm not used to you talking to me like that. Is that so? Well, I'm not saying you should never talk to me like that. Haha, I'm sure I'll get used to it eventually. I smirked in silence. Faking death seemed effective. Actually, I wasn't acting since I did suffer almost to the verge of death. Does it still hurt? Chuk Jung-hyung asked. I'm somewhat all right. But since time reversal's side effect was too severe, I planned to go back to the upgrade center and raise my stats a bit more. I'd been putting it off since it was a very painful surgical operation, but I did want to raise all stats by 3, which is the maximum. What do you mean by somewhat? All right is all right. And whatever. I got up. The 15th floor was one giant machine called Genko Peace Abandoned Vessel. The warship was the size of 2 Jeju-do islands put together. On this floor were appalling, futuristic phenomena, scarier than monsters. To reach the 16th floor, we needed to restart the ship. In short, we needed at least 1 month to clear this floor.
I'm going down to Crevon. No, before that, to the 7th floor. Gotcha. Then I'm going to Crevon. There's a fella I need to take care of. Chuk Jung-hyung stretched as he spoke. At his slightly suspicious remark, I asked directly, Why? To avenge Kaita? Chuk Jung-hyung paused. He turned to me, embarrassed that I read his mind, but soon gave a small smile. Once a comrade, always a comrade, no matter how stupid you are. He probably thought he said something cool, but it had no effect on me. For the record, Kaita was defeated consecutively by Kim Soo-ho and was already killed twice. Are you going to avenge him or not? I will, you bum. Chuk Jung-hyung curled his lip in a pout. I felt disgusted. Why did he try to act so gross, cute nowadays? So there's nothing that I need to do today? Yeah. Then I'm going. Chuk Jung-hyung went down using the crystal steel.
By the way, Boss, Jane, and Jin Johan left the tower a long time ago. They probably went out to look into Genghis Khan's artifacts. That was also an important turning point. Suddenly, my heart sank. There, Che Nayun would meet the Jin who killed her mother. Should I head there as well? I hadn't decided yet, but I did need to get stronger for Krevon's sake anyway. I went down to the 7th floor through the crystal steel as well. 7F. Game Center. I passed by the familiar lobby of the Game Center and went straight to the Upgrade Center. When I opened the door, the familiar AlphaGo greeted me. Hello. Yeah, hi. How may I help you today? I'm here to do what I don't want to do. Stat enhancement operation. I'd been putting it off for a while because it hurt like crazy, like your limbs were cut off and put back on again. Do you mean the stat enhancement operation? Yes. Can you do it? Yes, this operation can be performed up to 3 times. Player Extra 7 can undergo this surgery 2 more times. Okay, then enhancing all stats other than magic power. I easily paid 150,000 TP. It was then, suddenly, the door of the upgrade center shot open and somebody came in hurriedly. I quickly realized who she was. It was the robed sorceress, Medea. Hey, it's great to see you. I knew you'd come back, so I've been waiting for you for the last 20 days. Medea said gracefully and approached me with a beaming smile. You waited for me? Yes, Extra 7. Remember what you said last time? I don't really like being called by my nickname. Oh. Really? Sorry, then Tra? She tried to continue, but AlphaGo grabbed me. The operation will begin soon. Ah, really? Sorry, Administrator Nim. I need to go into surgery right now. Medea looked at AlphaGo, slightly irritated, but nodded hesitantly. Yeah? Then I'll wait until it's over. Oh, isn't this expensive? Do you want me to pay for it? I already paid. Yeah? Please follow me. AlphaGo's mechanical voice pressed me. I followed him, pretending to be sorry. Zroo! Quah! Wing! All kinds of horrible surgical sounds filled the shop. 4 hours later, I came out overcome with pain. After I drank a few potions to recover my stamina, I saw Medea dozing off on a chair. I thought as I stared at her. If she's this obsessed with luxuries, then it must mean that setting about her hasn't changed. Oh, you're done with the surgery? Medea woke up. She smiled bitterly as she handed me a potion, but put it back in her pocket when she saw what was in my hand. Yes, what is it? Well, about what you said last time. Something bad happened to me and I was in a horrible mood. I'd like to apologize first. I asked Samad and he told me that you were really the one who made it. I listened in silence. Actually, rather than listening, I was reading the notification window that popped up in the air. Warning: the calamities in Krevon are raging. I wasn't too surprised. I've been thinking about how great your craftsmanship is. But you see, a lot of administrators will come to see you from now on. Such a marvelous robe can't be found anywhere else. I don't intend to get it for free, or ask you to give me one as a gift, of course. Whoa! What? I widened my eyes and screamed out loud, on purpose. Sorry, Administrator Nim, something important came up in Krevon. Huh? I left Medea perplexed while I reclaimed my things from AlphaGo and took out the portable crystal steel. Let's talk about this another time. It's a huge calamity. Wait, kid!
As my body warped, I felt a sense of déjà vu.
Chapter 215. If someone asked whether a miracle had ever occurred, the Tower of Wish would be the clearest answer, or at least the closest clue.
The origin of a tower and the process of its creation remained complete mysteries. It was a place where a mysterious entity could even bring back the dead, a vast, extensive world that ignored the laws of physics and even the laws of magic, and the souls, the administrators, who maintained this place of miracles. But now, the most famous administrator of the Tower of Wish, Medea, was sighing. In front of her stood a beautifully adorned door. Although its ostentatiousness matched her beauty, Medea's heart was full of bitterness as she opened it. Beyond the softly opening door were several elegant pieces of furniture. Administrators faced players with memories of their past lives intact. However, they were humans before they became administrators. They wished to live their new lives as humans and sought out other humans to do so. But because administrators couldn't interact equally with NPCs and players, they created a gathering for administrators only. They displayed new magic, interesting magical powers, and enjoyed artifacts uncovered around the tower. This was more or less a social gathering for administrators. Today, Medea had come to participate in this gathering. Ancient era and Middle Ages, the Renaissance and Modern Age. Modern times and the future had come together to form a beautiful interior. It was the result of each member bringing something to decorate the place. Feeling dizzy, Medea sat down on a chair she had brought. She expected as much. When it came to gatherings of administrators, the early birds were fools, as there were 5 administrators, including Medea, who thought coming late was fashionable and made them seem more main character-like. Phenomenon Realm Gathering. Medea stared at the sign on one side of the wall and gritted her teeth. The gathering was only productive at first, when administrators actually discussed what they could do for themselves. Now, after over 100 years, the gathering was nothing more than a political battlefield. Phenomenon Realm. There was still one wish she couldn't give up: the Phenomenon Realm. To regain her body lost to death and return to being human. To achieve this 200-year-long wish, she required 2 things: fulfillment and state of existence. Here, fulfillment simply refers to one's achievements. This was the only reason Medea built an artificial sun over prestige. In truth, she didn't care about NPCs at all. After all, they were already dead souls. To her, only the living players were important. As such, Medea erected a sun while the players were watching. That should have been more than enough of an achievement. However, the bigger problem was state of existence. There are many ways to increase one's state of existence, and one way was through her beauty. It might seem strange. One might even ask, why can't you just equip the countless artifacts in the tower? The answer is simple. The tower's artifacts were no different than trash to administrators. The artifacts were relics left behind with their owners' deaths. If an administrator happily wielded an artifact, that would be no different than honoring the original owner. Naturally, it would be the original owner who received an increase in their state of existence. As such, Medea wanted an original beauty. That is why she kept a close eye on the Crevon Craftsman Tournament, even after dwarves went extinct. When she saw the ever-so-elegant original beauty, she believed her hard work was rewarded. Even if it only increased her state of existence by a little, that robe is something she must have. How should I coax him? While Medea was mulling over the matter, the door slowly creaked open. From the other side, 4 administrators walked in: Aphrodite, Penelope, and Athena. Athena? Hey, you came early. Hearing Aphrodite's greeting, Medea smiled. Her goddess status was a thing of the past. Now she was an administrator just like Medea. 100 years had already gone by since they figured out how to address each other. Hello. Hello. Have you been well? Helena, Athena, and Penelope greeted her in turn. They sat down in their seats, chatting. Medea glanced at their attires, which were no different than what they wore last time. I guess they really can't get any better at this point. Oh, right, Medea, I heard you've been chasing after the player who crafted Wolf's fragrance. At that moment, Aphrodite suddenly faced Medea and smiled brightly. Medea smiled back. I'm not chasing after him. You must have heard wrong. Oh, please, don't you know how rude that is? CMOD planned to give it to me all along. By the way, why is she here? Medea was more concerned with Athena than with Aphrodite. Athena was someone who left the phenomenon realm gathering 100 years ago. Her inflexible way of thinking kept her in the mindset that she was a goddess while others were only heroes of humans. Is that woman after the robe too? No, not that. Aphrodite interrupted Medea, and Athena interrupted Aphrodite. Yes, there's something I want too. Did Athena suppress her pride as a goddess? She seemed fine with Medea's casual speech. Arrow. There's an arrow I want. Then Athena said something Medea couldn't understand. What? An arrow? 8th floor, Crevan mainland. After leaving Medea behind, I went back to Crevan. The Atalis royal family had declared a state of emergency, advising citizens to stay indoors. As a result, the usually bustling streets of Crevan were now empty. Hing! Let's go. I summoned Sanuri and jumped on his back. Sitting on a comfortable saddle, I faced the far eastern battlefield. Thousands of monsters were marching from the east. Their desire for battle was too evident to say they were only acting on instinct. By the looks of it, Chimera, the hive mind of monsters, was commanding them. Hing! Thanks. Thanks to Sanuri, I quickly reached a high vantage point. A few monsters were nearby, but Sanuri and Spartan were more than enough to take care of them. Sanuri tackled them, and Spartan shot blasts of magic power at them. Well done. Sanuri and Spartan pushed the monsters away while I stood at the edge of a sharp cliff. The wind blew past me fiercely as I watched the monsters below, filling the vast land like weeds. A few arrows were incapable of dealing with such a number. For dark ore arrows to display their maximum potential, I had to use Stigma's magic power with them. If I used all 4 streaks of Stigma, I should be able to control my 5 dark ore arrows freely for about 10 minutes. But 10 minutes wasn't enough. I checked the number of bullets I had. By slowly building up the count, I now had 300 handgun bullets, 600 rifle bullets, and 90 sniper bullets. Assuming each bullet could kill 1.5 monsters, that would be 1,500 monsters.
While I was calculating my battle potential, I suddenly wondered, did I even need to fight? A wave of lightning will rage! Die! Aileen's childish voice summoned a lightning storm that swept through a crowd of monsters. Hellfire! Young-ha's inextinguishable fire also spread from one monster to another, dyeing the battlefield in its reddish-black hue. I'll focus on sniping down the liches, spellcasters, specters, and other magic casters. Jin Se-yun's magic arrows shot down especially threatening monsters. Meanwhile, Shin Jong-hak was also putting on a fantastic show. Kim Young-jin had obtained the legendary Azure Dragon Crescent Blade from somewhere and was utilizing his Weapon Master gift to its maximum potential. Kim Jun-yu was dancing through the battlefield with his sword, as expected of a hunter of the vast expanse, and Jin Sa-hyuk was firing a flurry of magic weapons in the middle of the chaos. Wait, Jin Sa-hyuk? Was that really Jin Sa-hyuk? I narrowed my eyes and focused my sight. What the heck? Jin Sa-hyuk was indeed among the players sweating and working hard to defeat monsters. What is she doing there? I wondered. But I quickly found an answer. She probably participated to earn TP. After all, she seemed to be placing huge expectations on the 7th floor's neurotech chip. I found my first target. I knocked my arrow and aimed at Jin Sa-hyuk. Warning! Crevan is currently at war. The player you targeted for an attack is an ally who joined Crevan's war effort. Killing this player may result in punishment from Crevan. It seemed she had even officially joined the war effort. But since the punishment wouldn't be coming from an administrator, I didn't care that much. At that moment, Jin Sa-hyuk seemed to sense danger with her sharp intuition as she suddenly turned around in the middle of battle. Her eyes scanned the surroundings and soon landed on me. We gazed at each other from a long distance. Jin Sahyuk gritted her teeth seeing my arrow. Not long afterwards, her mouth moved. I couldn't tell if she was only moving her mouth or if I couldn't hear her for some reason. Regardless, I understood what she was trying to say. "I'm not doing anything bad right now." She then added another sentence. "Don't shoot, damn it!" Her desperate yelling made me laugh. I let go of the bowstring. Swoosh! The dark ore arrow shot forward with a sonic boom. Jin Sahyuk quickly formed a barrier, but it was incapable of blocking Stigma's anti-magic power. Her barrier shattered, and my arrow pierced her shoulder. She should now be struck with unimaginable pain. Looking at Jin Sahyuk, who managed not to scream, an absurd thought popped into my head. Would it be possible to change her, too? Just like how Shin Jong-hak and Chae Na-yoon changed? Of course, there was no need to be swayed by such a hypothetical question. I would still kill her without hesitation if given the chance, but perhaps I'd been excluding the possibility of reforming her too much. In any case, Jin Sahyuk was glaring at me with eyes full of pain and frustration. I could clearly feel the rage coming my way. For now, I had no plans to let her live in peace. I raised my bow and nocked another arrow. It was then that Jin Sahyuk suddenly disappeared. How quick! I refused to let her escape. I infused Stigma's magic power into my eyes and chased after her. Jin Sahyuk had already gotten far away, holding onto her shoulder as she clenched her teeth in pain. Fortunately for her, my attention was stolen by other nearby players. Kim Soo-ho, Vanessa Furman, Paolo Furman, Lee Young-han, and Chae Na-yoon. It was Kim Soo-ho's party. Be careful, everyone. They were fighting Medusa some distance from the main battlefield. A white aura emanated from Kim Soo-ho's golden sword strike. That was likely from Hwai's sword technique I gifted Soo-ho. You're the one who should be careful. Chae Na-yoon then swung a claymore the size of her body. The powerful strike smashed Medusa's minions apart and left a gaping wound on Medusa's body. They were at an advantage. In fact, they had an overwhelming lead. They didn't need my help, so I slowly began to put my bow down. Yeah! Then suddenly Medusa screamed and activated her magic eye of petrification. That much was something Kim Soo-ho's party expected. Kim Soo-ho swung his sword, his gift easily severed Medusa's authority, and the rest of his party remained unaffected. But the real problem wasn't on the ground. Up above in the blue sky, a flock of harpies, several hundred in number, suddenly appeared. Level 10 harpy. Bick! Monsters with the head of a human and the body of a bird. These monsters screamed and spat out venomous fluids, drawing the attention of Kim Soo-ho's party. What are those? Chae Na-yoon sent a sword strike into the sky, but the harpies were nimble, dodging her attack before it could reach them. Thinking about it now, Vanessa Furman was the only one in Kim Soo-ho's party who specialized in long-range attacks. Kim Soo-ho and Chae Na-yoon were striking down a few harpies here and there, but that only meant their attention was being taken off Medusa. The tide of a battle was changing. Kim Soo-ho and his party had to defeat Medusa today. Without any other choice, I raised my bow once again. I nocked 5 arrows on the bowstring. They only needed my help for the harpies. I infused my 3 remaining streaks of stigma into the arrows. Heavy sparks of lightning crackled around the 5 dark ore arrows. I aimed at the sky where the harpies were chirping loudly. The bowstring became tense as the loaded arrows growled. But when I let go of the bowstring, the 5 arrows flew stealthily and soundlessly. Shwa! The 5 black streaks had only one goal: to decimate the harpies. To achieve this, the 5 arrows pierced through all monsters in their paths. Soon, harpies rained down from the sky and formed a mountain of corpses. Seeing that the calamities were being hunted down without problem, I returned to Seoul. It wasn't anything special. Although I hadn't mentioned it, I'd been going back and forth between the tower and Earth through Spartan's authority. Hajin. Meow. As soon as I returned to my apartment in Gangnam, Evandil and Hyang greeted me. Have you been good? Evandil was growing by the day. Although her height was on the slower side, she had the body of a 5-year-old when she was born. Technically, her current appearance isn't too different from her real age. I wanted to see you. Me too. Because of Evandil's origin, I couldn't send her to school. If I knew a worthy tutor, I would happily entrust Evandil to that person, but not many people have the ability and knowledge to be her teacher. I did have one in mind at first, a magician with ample teaching experience who used summons just like Evandil. Ah-Hei-In. But, well, I didn't have a good first impression of her, and from what I hear, she charged an absurd 5 billion won for one lesson. I came back too late today. What shall we do tomorrow? Hearing my words, Evandil's eyes sparkled.
You'll be here tomorrow too? At that moment, the door opened and Yoon Sung-ah walked in with a grocery bag in hand. Her eyes shined the moment she saw me. Oh, who's this? The famous Black Lotus killer. I was about to greet her when I heard what she said and flinched. Huh? You thought I wouldn't know? Yoon Sung-ah smiled mischievously. Everyone knows that you killed Black Lotus. Oh. It made sense, but that wasn't why I was surprised. I looked at Evandil, then looked back at Yoon Sung-ah. Killer. Killed. I didn't really want Evandil to hear such words. Ah, it means he plucked a flower. Nowadays, Evandil, you're not allowed to pluck flowers that aren't yours. Okay. Evandil giggled as she watched Yoon Sung-ah try to save the situation. Then she grabbed the plastic bag in Yoon Sung-ah's hand and skipped over to the kitchen. After sitting down on a chair, she took the groceries out with a smile. This is chicken, this is onion, this is garlic, this is egg. She was lessening her auntie's work. Afterwards, I took the ingredients Evandil laid out and demonstrated dwarf's dexterity for the first time in a while. 1 hour later, Evandil fell asleep with Hyang soon after finishing her meal. Yoon Sung-ah turned the TV off and buried herself on the couch with a yawn. Let's get back to business. The next important event was Genghis Khan's artifacts in Central Asia. While I cooked, Yoon Sung-ah and I talked a bit about it. As you know, those artifacts are in Central Asia, which is causing a lot of headaches. Because that land isn't in any country's jurisdiction, the association normally would have given up. Even if an excavation site was built there, the surrounding regions belong to Jinns, and pandemonium is nearby too. Yoon Sung-ah continued with a serious face. The question is how this information got leaked, because pandemonium Jinns managed to find out and began to build an excavation site around it. Of course, I already knew everything she was telling me. Still, I pretended not to know and wore an oblivious face. Since we can't just watch them take all the artifacts, the association reluctantly chose to fight them. We are talking about Genghis Khan's artifacts after all. Genghis Khan, otherwise known as Temujin, the emperor who founded the largest contiguous empire in the history of Earth. Although his empire didn't last long after his death, his name reached legendary status that spread throughout the world. Furthermore, Genghis Khan's army was smaller in number but stronger in individual power. As such, an old weapon used by a nameless soldier in his army could potentially be higher than a low-grade artifact. Of course, we still have time. From our estimate of the technology available to them, they still need 2 weeks before they can start excavating artifacts. So I was wondering, you're a mercenary. I start at 50 billion. I gave a reply I already had prepared. Huh? Taken aback, Yoon Sung-ah jumped slightly. You didn't just call me the Black Lotus killer, that would mean my value just skyrocketed, I said with a smile. Yoon Sung-ah scratched her head with a flustered look.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the video. Have a suggestion? Let me know in the comments.